quote-unquote second half of the regular season started last night, got underway with some NBA action around the league. We mentioned Amazon Prime had a couple of games. You had the Pistons and the Knicks, Celtics and the Warriors. And so post-All-Star break, the NBA is back. And the NBA cannot help but find themselves in the midst of another problem they try and figure out and they try and fix. Do we have any NBA on NBC theme music to break down the latest "this is going to make things better in our league" moment for Adam Silver and company?
Oh.
So Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, informed the league's 30 GMs on Thursday that the league plans to make anti-tanking rules for next season. Multiple sources with knowledge of Thursday's meeting, as well as of late January competition committee meeting, told ESPN that these concepts have been discussed to curb tanking. First-round draft picks can be protected only for top 4 or top 14 plus selections. Lottery odds freeze at the trade deadline or a later date. No longer allowing a team to pick in the top 4 in consecutive years and or after consecutive bottom 3 finishes. Teams can't pick in the top 4 the year after making conference finals. Lottery odds allocated based on 2-year records. Lottery extended to include all play-in teams. And finally, flattening the odds for all lottery teams. So those are on the table and part of the discussion as far as how the NBA is going to get rid of this whole tanking fiasco that is currently plaguing the league. And that's the latest. Live here from the DP show, 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe, NBA Update Desk.
Are you okay, Mike?
Is tanking really the issue in the NBA right now? Like, do you guys watch the NBA and go, "Oh, that's the problem"? Like, they're just all these teams are tanking.
I just watch it and go, none of it matters in the regular season. So what's the point? And if we're being honest, the first round, maybe the second round doesn't matter either.
Okay, so you got to dig deeper into that for me, because why doesn't it matter?
Because it's a different season. Everybody ramps up for the postseason, and you're either trying to get to the draft or you're trying to set yourself up for the postseason, because everybody is judged based on the postseason performance. The regular season is become irrelevant.
But in order to get to the postseason, you have to be successful enough in the regular season.
Cool.
So it does matter to a degree.
And there's bad games throughout the course of the regular season. There's players that aren't participating. They can throw whatever awards they want as part of the reason for you to play. And then we get to the postseason and we realize, we got to sit through 7 of these potentially just to get to the conference finals and the NBA finals. There's about 4 teams that can win a title, and it's most likely going to be OKC. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay, well, then that's this year and looking at in a vacuum. But I guess my point is, what's the difference between tanking and then game management or load management?
You're still trying to win if it's load management. If you're tanking, you're purposely – this would be my interpretation of it. You're purposely trying to lose. So if I'm pulling a guy out –
And how are you doing that?
By pulling my better players out of the game.
And then if you're doing load management, who's not playing in the game?
Your better players are being pulled out of the game. But if it's load management, you're pulling them out of the game with a strategy of saying, I'm trying to preserve them for the long haul of a long season. So I want them to have as much in the tank as they possibly can have, still be competitive to make the postseason, and then them have enough gas to be able to get through the postseason to the championship. Whereas I think tanking – you're pulling them out with the intentions of losing. Like, we want to lose. That's why we're pulling our better players out. And in fact, you might even be pulling them out to get rid of those players, too. That's a part of NBA politics as well. They'll pull you out and not play you.
Let's not get on tangent. Let's stay on this thought. Okay. Right. So here's where I would say what's interesting about that is, does load management start at the beginning of the season? If you have this long-term thought of it's a long season, we got to protect our best players, do they start looking into load management at the beginning of the season?
I mean, depending on how old that player is and
yes
what
or no?
ailments, I think it all depends.
It's a yes. The answer is a yes. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think one of the issues with the NBA right now is it's a league that has gotten to the point where someone like Jonas will say the regular season is meaningless because nothing matters till you get to the playoffs. And that's fair. There's a lot of sports leagues that play a lot of games. Baseball, playoff baseball, even hockey, playoff hockey, phenomenal, right? Phenomenal. Regular season, all right, they've had their nights with it's good and bad. But the truth of the matter is when you have such a long playoff series, outside of seeding for the playoffs, it takes away from what the regular season is. I think every single professional sports league battles this. So to me, when I'm looking at the NBA issues, and I think there's more than just that tanking or game management, I look at it and say game management starts at the beginning of the season, or load management, excuse me. Because you're looking at the better
management. That's a new term. I like it. Go ahead. Tanking management.
But you're looking at it for the extent of the season. Now, if you wanted to say, hey, we're tanking, well, then to me, it's an entirely different strategy than load management. Tanking is like you're getting rid of your best players. So when you're talking about, hey, we're trying to sit our best guys for load management, and tanking, they ain't there. Like you're moving on. You're clearing cap space. You're trying to accumulate draft picks because that's ultimately your capital to either go rebuild by getting a star player and building up that roster again, or drafting the future and finding a player like Cooper Flagg or Darren Patterson, whoever is in this outstanding freshman class in college basketball now. Like that's how you'd go about doing it. So when I look at like Adam Silver making tanking this big issue, I actually feel like he's missed again because this isn't the issue with the NBA. Like how many viral things have you seen where we watch guys travel constantly and you're like, why don't they call, like, why can't they call the game as it's supposed to be called nowadays? Like you have officiating issues. You've got issues with allowing super teams to happen amongst these, which has plagued and created less parity in the league more than anything else. The fact that you're allowing like multiple all-stars, these power, teams to get together, like that's been what's really taken place over the past couple of decades. That's changed the parity and competitiveness. All the stars aren't spread out; they're together. So again, and these are things that like I don't know that you're going to be able to fix in one off season. But trying to get teams away from tanking, I actually feel like I kind of sided with Mark Cuban on this. And I don't know if you guys talked about some of the quotes.
Yeah, we did.
So, and then if you want to review it again, we can talk about this. But here's why I sided with him a little bit. Is if you're a team that decides to tank, who ultimately suffers the consequences?
The fans.
Well, the fans to a degree, but more the team. They're the ones who lose revenue. They're the ones who lose money.
But they stink.
Exactly.
You're tanking because they stink. So they're already suffering, right? The team is already suffering. They
tanking.
stink.
You could look at it in two ways. I would actually say that if you stink, then you're kind of already there. You don't need to tank because you already stink. Teams that tank are teams that are in purgatory. They're not one of the top teams that win a championship, but they're not one of the worst either because they're already in the mix for getting a lottery pick and trying to rebuild. So they're actually more of a team that's in the middle of the league. And they tank so they get back down to the bottom so they can get some of those lottery picks, or they can put themselves in a position to be able to clear cap space and build it back up. But ultimately, the team that suffers the most is the team that's tanking. Like they're taking that on. Like I kind of look at it this way. Think about real estate. And actually, I'll go close to home for you guys. Obviously, there was the fires out in the Pacific Palisades, right?
Yep.
Have some of those houses been rebuilt?
Oh, God, no.
Okay, but why have they not been rebuilt? What's so hard to obtain in California? Permitting. It's a form of regulation. What Adam Silver's doing in my mind is he's actually making it harder for these teams that need to rebuild and want to try to do a quick flip. He's making it harder by creating more regulation around it. So look, I understand people may not agree with this. And again, it doesn't always have the best interests of the fan in mind for that season, but long-term it does. And I think if you look at the essence of what Mark Cuban's actually saying is he's bringing up a really good point. How many people are priced out now from going to games? Because everything's gotten so damn expensive. And that's the reality of just what it is. I mean, by the way, it's not just the NBA. I mean, go look at World Cup tickets for this summer.
Yeah.
My goodness.
That's the part of Cuban's Twitter rant, if you want to call it that I totally agree with, is the cost for these families to try and go to games, to buy merchandise, all that's, it's ridiculous. And it feels like it's getting worse.
And look, I'll say this about like going to the Falcons games, and I think we did a report on this, what Arthur Blank was hoping to do. And I don't know if LaVar, you were there for the show. We were talking about how they've actually kept concession prices low for a lot of the families and fans who want to go to Falcons games. The ticket prices are ticket prices, but it's a great atmosphere. Like, had the chance to call a game this year, and I told you guys, it was like, it was live like that. It was a wild like environment. It was awesome. Now, the Falcons didn't win, but like at the end of the day, it was a great experience. Like, the game obviously ended up being, a fun game to watch. It was kind of close and all that, but just I'm thinking to myself, they had a fun time. Like, even though their team didn't win, they had a fun time. And so there are some teams and franchises that I think do it well, but I think Mark Cuban's trying to point out something that to me has as much to do with it as anything else, and that's the fan experience. It's been taken away, and I think there is a reality to. When I was a young kid growing up watching the Cleveland Cavs, did I go up saying, oh, it's the Cavs, they're going to beat the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan? Hell no. But I wanted to go see them try.
They were close.
But they were close. And look, that was part of it. Like, you're seeing a team that was competitive that almost got there but didn't quite get there. But I would also say this, like, if you take away a team's ability to make that decision that ultimately is going to hurt them and tank, did the Cleveland Cavs ever get LeBron James? I mean, Luka basically got to the Mavericks because Cuban admitted that was a strategy they implemented. I feel like if this is the issue that you really want to harp on, if you're Adam Silver in the NBA, you're kind of missing it, in my opinion, man.
But like,
this is not the issue with your league.
I think that's why it's the fan, and I'm gonna stay true to that. I think the fans suffer when a team tanks. That's who suffers, because it is about the fan experience. Pro sports in general are geared towards catering to the family, and when you tank, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's a great example, because this was a team that they had talent. I mean, they had Elo was on that team. I believe
that was a
Nance
long
was
time
on that
ago.
team. Yeah.
Like, there was also years that you're not remembering where they weren't good.
Well, I get that. It's Cleveland. But with that being said, again, if a team is trying to be competitive, as a fan, you can still get behind that. You can boo, you can be upset, but you can still say they came out and they tried. When you're talking about tanking,
hold on. But hold on. Even the guys, if they're like, this is why this argument never works with the NFL. Do the players that are there weeks 16, 17, 18, if the starters aren't in, are those backups going in there saying, well, I'm going to lay an egg today?
They would be starting if they weren't.
No, but that's not the point. If you're talking about effort, and you're talking about those guys doing all they can, they have to.
Yeah, but
that's their livelihood.
That's not my focus. My focus is I'm going to play the best players to have the best opportunity to try to win. If those players are available and they're not playing, that's tanking. And if you're tanking when you have your best players available, then, for instance.
But that's tanking / you could call it load management, whatever you want. And look, again,
it depends on what your thought process is. If you're
I'm not saying it's ethical. Hear me out. I brought up the Pacific Palisades and the fires and all that for this reason. There's people who want to build back their home. They want to do it now. They probably have the means and capability to do it now, but they're not able to. So they can't ramp up and start that building process to move back into their home, to be able to, start that new life again or build that new team again because of overregulation. And that's where I feel like you're getting at a little bit here, is it's getting so nuanced. I mean, what do you just list 5 bullet points of different ways that they're going to try to curtail tanking?
I think this is a clear sign that Adam Silver and the NBA care more about the TV partners and the gambling partners than they do the fans. Because if you cared about the fans the way that you did, there would be some sort of an edict around the league to be like, hey, man, make it more affordable for fans, make it more affordable for this. A lot of this was pushed on because they're paranoia about gambling and players take, what this guy's resting, gambling partners wonder if this is on the up and up. I think that this is all about the TV revenue and the gambling revenue. I think the fans are third in this order.
Without a doubt.
Order. Which they should be number one.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. It's a consumer-driven industry.
I'm gonna say something, but you're not gonna like it. That the fans aren't what pays the bills. It's the TV media rights deal.
100%.
Yeah, but the TV media rights deals are based off of how many people are viewing those commercials.
Exactly.
If you take away the fan, the TV rights don't even matter. Like, that's the bottom line.
There's two different experiences, because you can say that, right? The stadiums can be empty, but if people still watch, there's still TV media rights deals.
Well, and I mean, for example, stadium is ticket sales, concessions,
exactly,
things like that.
But people are still watching. That's why the TV media rights deals are what they are. And by the way,
that's why the fan matters.
Let me go a step further. What about leagues like the WNBA?
They're supplemented by the NBA.
They're subsidized by the NBA.
Yeah,
but they're still going for extreme value as far as the franchise rights, and they still have TV media rights deal that, if you look at the economics of it, they would say, well, they're not obviously to the viewership of the NBA, but someone's watching, and there's clearly not as many people there in person as there is watching on TV.
It's still based off of the participation of the fan.
You want the fans to be like first in all this, but that's not how these guys are looking at it. They're looking at it like a business.
I think there's a difference between the fan that wants to go to the game and the fan who wants to watch at home, in the sense that...
And by the way, if you're tanking, you have that choice. You don't have to buy the ticket if you know the team's tanking, which is not a decision that you make again. Like, it happens at some point, either halfway through the season, or going into the season. Like the Browns, when they adopted that strategy, I don't think anyone didn't think that they were going to be competitive. Like, they openly kind of admitted like what they were kind of doing.
I just think that the product at home has gotten so good that why would you want to go to get, like, there was a story we did about a guy who went to every single NFL stadium this year. He watched a bunch of these games, went to every single stadium. And my big question was, why? Like,
because there's still something connected to an in-person experience.
I totally get it, but I think that the number of people who fill up a stadium, NBA, for example, 18,000 on a good night, on a really good night at an NBA game, 18,000 if you're up to the rafters. There's a lot more people that tune in and out of that game on TV if it's on TV.
Without a doubt.
And I think that Adam Silver, with the TV partnerships, with the gambling paranoia, I think he looks at that as, we'll address the fans later and hope they stick around. We got to make sure that things are right on the TV side and present a better product, because more of those people are watching at home. It's just too good now.
By the way, the players will adapt to this, because this isn't like a singular issue that just the NBA side is trying to figure out and fix with the teams, because load management is a portion of it being players' choice too. I mean, how many NBA players have we heard about who want to be, traded or go to another team because their team held them out of games for load management? Like the Max Crosby situation in Las Vegas. Have we heard about an NBA player who was frustrated about the team shutting him down for load management?
No, that guy would sign an extension.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think I do think guys are frustrated when they get load management, because that's a way of saying, we don't want this player and we don't want to play this player. Load management in some cases is a reference to, we're not going to play you, we're trying to move you. And they'll sit you until they're able to move you. That is true. That's very true.
What would you call LeBron?
True.
What would you call LeBron this year?
Probably load management, because he's very old.
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's elements of that. But there's elements of that with all stars.
But hold on now. Hold on. That's.
By the way,
I'm using that example because you're in LA.
Okay. I take that example.
There's other examples of that.
Load management for a lot longer than looking at one singular person that's an outlier. LeBron James is one of one.
You're combining the two. If you're saying that they want to sit him out to move him, that's tanking. That's not load management.
That's not necessarily tanking either, though. It's not that black and white.
Your nurturing tone with LeBron, like, he's very old.
He's old. He is.
It's like a dog.
It is what it is, man. I didn't say like a dog, but he is very old, and load management could go a long way if you're trying to make it to the playoffs and him have enough gas later on. But there are
for
other
every
guys,
veteran old player. There's a lot of guys who that's not the intent of sitting out.
reason why they do load management with all these players. It's
Again,
not
it's
because
not
they're
load
tanking
management.
either. It's not because they're tanking.
If you sit out a guy to move him, then clearly you're not necessarily tanking, but you're not trying to play him because you're trying to rebuild.
You're not playing him because you don't want to play him, because for whatever reason, that could be disagreement between head coach and player, or GM and player, or whatever it may be.
A player has complete control over whether or not they want to play. Like if someone came to you and said, you're not playing tonight for load management, the player can be like, F off, I'm going to go play.
Yeah, but they might not play him. They're not going to play him. He's not going to go into the game. It's not no F off, I'm going into the game. You can't go into the game. They got to put you in the game. They're not going in the game.
Okay, then here's what he'd do. He'd file a grievance with his union to the NBA and say they have to play him. I'm healthy. I'm telling them I want to play.
They don't have to play him.
You could say they don't have to, but there would be a grievance filed if that was the case. Like you can't force a player who's on the roster if he's healthy to not play. Like I'm saying, load management, they're in street clothes.
They're
not in warm up sitting there like maybe
a lot of
on the
homies
bench.
behind the scenes that know a lot about a lot of things. Ask them about this topic. That is not true. What you're saying, I mean, yeah, sure, they can file a grievance, but they do not have to play a player. If they decide that they're going to move on from a player, I don't care how big his name is, they will sit him out. They will sit that man out.
And that happens in every sport. That
Right.
that's okay, LaVar. That's exactly what I'm talking about with Max Crosby and the Raiders. He wanted to play. They shut him down. They sat him out.
Yeah. And we still don't know what
how
the
many
reason
players
is.
have we heard in the NBA who've been seeking a trade and made a big deal about orchestrated because
it's just very normalized. So you're not going to hear it as much because it's a normalized practice within that industry. That's all. I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, I don't make the rules. It's not me that does it, but I do know that for certain that is how things are handled in the NBA. That's all I'd say.